Okay, everyone, welcome back to Edward Reads Books. It's been a while, guys, I'm not going to lie. I've had a lot on recently, and honestly, I've just really struggled to make a video. But 2024 is almost at a close. I'm actually really proud to say that I've read 40 books this year, which is actually a bit of a personal accomplishment for me. I think initially I set my goal to 20 books this year, and I've read double that. So I've got through a lot of books this year. There's kind of a lot to talk about, and I'm also going to just talk about some of the books that I plan to read for 2025. So initially, to start the video, I'm just going to talk about some of the books that I read sort of the back end of October, November into December, and the lead up to Christmas. So I'll just get started with the books that I actually got around to reading. Okay, so the first one, this is kind of talked about a lot, is High Fidelity by Nick Hornby. Now, this is a really insightful story about Rob Fleming, who is basically a cynical man who owns a record store in London. And essentially the story follows him being dumped by his long-term partner, whose name is Laura, and it's essentially a reflection on his life and why he kind of looks into why all of his relationships have failed in the past. So I think he makes a top 5 list of all these different breakups, and I guess it's an exploration as to why all of these have failed. And it's just a really funny book. Like it's just, the writing style is brilliant. I think I gave this a 5-star on Goodreads. It really impressed me, and I know a lot of people have talked about it beforehand, but I thought this was a really good read. And it looks into kind of his emotional intelligence as a person, as a factor as to why a lot of his relationship haven't worked. So first one that I'm going to talk about is High Fidelity by Nick Hornby. Would definitely recommend reading this one. It's really good. The next one I read, this was kind of towards the end of October, but that is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This is just your typical kind of psychological horror novel about the mystery and terror of this mansion. There's a doctor called Dr. Montague, and he invites 3 people along to this mansion, and it kind of, the story looks into the kind of psychological and kind of paranormal activity that happens in the mansion. It's kind of just your typical haunting house tale, but again was pretty good. I think I gave this one a 4-star. So I would look into Shirley Jackson's writing. She also does one called We Have Always Lived in the Castle, which I'm yet to read, but I will get around to it at some point. Next one I read was Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. Personally, for me, I wasn't a massive fan of the writing style. I'm yet to watch the series. I still haven't got around to watching the series, but I'm definitely going to get around to watching that at some point. This is essentially a dystopian novel. It's just set in Gilead, which is a society that has essentially overthrown the United States government and has stripped all women of their rights. For me, there was definitely a lot of interesting concepts in this book, and definitely parts of it that I did like, but I just really struggled with the writing style. And maybe as a woman, I don't know, you can relate to it more, but for me, I struggled with it, and I think I ended up giving it a 3-star. And I understand why lots of people do like it, but I just for me, I just struggle with it. So if you're wondering why I'm looking down, I'm just looking at my notes of the books that I actually have read. Just to give myself a little reminder. The next one, I read this sort of mostly in November, and that was Eleanor Catton's Burnham Wood. So Burnham Wood basically follows a guerrilla activist group, like a gardening collective in New Zealand, and they are offered, one of the members basically meets a American billionaire, and he offers funding to kind of expand the project. And the whole premise of the book basically is whether or not they can trust this billionaire and his motives for the organization. And it's kind of an exploration into whether or not he can be trusted, and whether the group can trust him and whether they can trust each other. And although I liked some of the concepts of this book, I don't like books that don't really have chapters. And this, I don't know, the way it was laid out was almost like massive chunks of writing, but not a lot of chapters to kind of split up the book, which for me, I just kind of don't like. I like sort of short chapters where I feel like I can kind of progress through the book steadily, if that makes sense. But if you do like kind of like thriller books and books that kind of keep you on the edge of your seat, this is quite a good one. So that is Burnham Wood by Eleanor Catton. And then the final one that I've kind of read this year that's kind of been talked about a lot is, John Williams' Stoner. So this book is essentially about the life of William Stoner, who's basically from a Missouri farm. He's a Missouri farm boy who discovers a love of literature, and it follows his academic career and his relationship with his wife Edith. And it talks about his own personal disappointments, and it's just it basically follows his life and his where his relationship kind of goes wrong with his wife, and talks about his academic achievements and his relationships with people at the university. And I know there are a lot of people that have given this a 5-star. For me, I wouldn't say it was a 5-star. I'd definitely give it a 4, and I did enjoy it. But for me, it didn't hold up to be a 5-star read, but that's just my personal opinion, and I can understand obviously why lots of people do like it. But yeah, that is John Williams' Stoner. So they're the books that I've kind of been reading recently, and now I'm just going to talk about some of the books that I plan to read sort of early 2025. The first one being Emily Henry, You and Me on Vacation. Now this one, I felt like I wanted to start 2025 off with just kind of an easy, casual sort of read that's not really going to be too heavy. So I'll just read the blurb to you guys. So, 12 summers ago, Poppy and Alex meet. They hate each other and are pretty confident they'll never speak again. 11 summers ago, they're forced to share a ride home from college, and by the end of it, a pact is formed. Every year, one vacation together. 10 summers ago, Alex discovers his fear of flying. Poppy holds his hand the whole way. 7 summers ago, they get far too drunk and narrowly avoid getting matching tattoos in New Orleans. 2 summers ago, it all goes wrong. This summer, Poppy asks Alex to join her on one last trip. Could this trip make them realise they're not just friends after all? So yeah, I'm assuming it's a story about, I don't know, 2 people falling in love together. And it says their last chance to fall in love on the front. So I'm hoping this is just going to be a kind of an easy read to set me up for the start of the year, but that's the first one that I'm going to read. Next one I'm going to read, I've talked about this before, Mark Twain, Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, a classic. I think a lot of people know about this book, but I'm going to get around to reading it at some point, because I also want to read James by Percival Everett, which has just come out, which is actually to do with Huckleberry Finn. So I'm going to get round to reading this at some point in the new year. Then we've got If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. And this one, I think I've talked about in a previous video. It's like a literary thriller. So again, I'm looking forward to this. Should be good. And then a couple of books that I actually got for Christmas were All the Broken Places by John Boyne. Now, I do believe that this is a sequel to The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas. If you've ever read that book or you ever watched that film, it is absolutely heartbreaking. And I have had a look at the reviews for this on Goodreads, and it definitely looks like something that I'm going to really enjoy reading. So I'll read the blurb to you guys. Gretel Fernsby is a quiet woman leading a quiet life. She doesn't talk about her escape from Germany 70 years ago or the dark post-war years in France with her mother. Most of all, she doesn't talk about her father, the commandant of one of the most notorious Nazi concentration camps. But when a young family moves into the apartment below her, Gretel can't help but befriend their little boy, Henry, though his presence brings back painful memories. One night she witnesses a violent argument between his parents, which threatens to disturb her hard-won peace. For the second time in her life, Gretel is given the chance to save a young boy. To do so would allay her guilt, grief, and remorse, but will also force her to reveal her true identity. Will she make a different choice this time, whatever the cost to herself? So yeah, I'm assuming this is about kind of post-war Nazi occupation. But I know John Boyne's books, some of John Boyne's books are really, really good. I must admit I haven't read a lot of them myself. I think the only one I have read is Boy in the Striped Pajamas, and I absolutely loved it. But again, really look forward to getting stuck into this. If you've read any of these books that I'm talking about, guys, please just leave a comment and let me know what you think. But that is All the Broken Places by John Boyne. And then finally, another book that I was given for Christmas, and this is quite a big hardback book, is All the Colours of the Dark by Chris Whitaker. Now, I must admit, I have not heard of Chris Whitaker before. I don't know what kind of books he does, but I think this is a thriller. It's quite a big book. I mean, you're talking, yeah, over 500 pages, which is quite extensive. But I'm very much looking forward to it. I will read out the blurb, just so you're aware. So, late one summer, the town of Montclair is shattered by the abduction of teenager Joseph Patch Macaulay. Nobody more so than Saint Brown, who will risk everything to find her best friend. But when she does it, it will break her heart. Patch lies alone in a pitch-black room until he feels a hand in his. Her name is Grace, and though they cannot see each other, she lights their world with her words. But when he escapes, there is no sign she ever even existed. Left with only her voice and her name, he paints her from broken memories and charts an epic search to find her. As years turn to decades and hope becomes obsession, Saint will shadow his journey on a darker path to hunt down the man who took them and set free the only boy she ever loved, even if finding the truth means losing each other forever. So again, this sounds really intriguing. I'm really excited to get stuck into this. I plan to have another good year in terms of reading books. I mean, if I could surpass 40 books, that would be excellent, but I think 40 books is actually quite a good and realistic target for this year. In the new year, I hope to bring out kind of more videos. I've got a few things planned that should be quite exciting. But as always, guys, thank you for your patience in me bringing out another video. I'm sorry that I haven't brought anything out recently, but I'm hoping to release a few more videos in the near future. Okay, so thanks very much for listening, guys. Hope you have a nice day. Cheers.